Brooks walked through the wide halls of Galactic Unity Academy and tried not to notice how everyone moved away from him. The station was called Harmony Prime, and it floated somewhere between 3 different star systems. Students from over 40 species came here to learn together. Was the first human to attend in 7 years. He carried his bag over one shoulder and looked for his classroom. A group of small creatures with purple skin saw him coming and pressed themselves against the wall. Their eyes were wide with fear, smiled at them and waved, but they only trembled more. This was his 3rd day at the academy, and he was getting used to the reactions. Humans were rare in galactic society. Most species had only heard stories about them, and the stories were not comforting. Earth was classified as a Category 7 death world. The galactic database listed it as one of the most dangerous planets capable of producing intelligent life. Found his classroom and stepped inside. It was a large circular room with seats arranged in rising rows like a stadium. Students of all shapes and sizes filled the seats. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had too many eyes or not enough limbs. Spotted an empty seat near the middle and made his way toward it. The seat was next to a small creature that looked like a rabbit standing on 2 legs. She had silver fur and long ears that twitched nervously as sat down. Her name tag read. "Hi," said I'm. Ears flattened against her head. "I know who you are," she said in a quiet voice. "You are the human." "That's me," said. He pulled out his tablet and set it on the desk. "Is this seat taken?" "No," said. She seemed to be holding her breath. Noticed but did not comment. He had learned that pushing too hard only made things worse. Instead, he looked around the room and took in his classmates. A large creature with green scales and 4 arms sat in the back row. His name was, and he belonged to a species called. They were known throughout the galaxy as warriors, even kept glancing at with an expression that mixed curiosity with caution. The door at the front of the room opened, and the instructor walked in. Instructor was a tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. He moved with the careful grace of someone who had spent many years teaching nervous students. "Good morning, class," said. His voice was calm and deep. "Today we continue our discussion of comparative planetary survival. We will examine how different species adapted to their home environments." Listened as talked about various worlds. He described planets with low gravity where the inhabitants evolved to be tall and fragile. He described worlds with thick atmospheres where the inhabitants developed multiple respiratory systems. The students took notes and asked questions. Then turned to. "We have a unique opportunity today," the instructor said. "We have a student from a Category 7 death world. Perhaps would be willing to share some information about human adaptations." Every eye in the room turned to. He felt the weight of their attention, but did not let it bother him. "Sure," said. "What would you like to know?" A student near the front raised a tentacle. "Is it true that humans consume poison for pleasure?" "Thought about this. We drink alcohol and caffeine. Both are toxic to many species. We also eat capsaicin, which is the chemical that makes peppers spicy. It causes pain responses, but we enjoy it." The class murmured with disbelief. Next to him made a small sound of horror. Another student spoke up. "I read that humans form bonds with predators. Is this true?" "We keep pets," said. "Dogs were originally wolves. Cats are small predators. We domesticated them thousands of years ago. They live in our homes now." "You live with predators," the student repeated, as if trying to understand the words. "They're friendly," said with a shrug. Instructor stepped closer. "I understand that humans have remarkable healing abilities. Can you tell us about this?" Nodded. "Our bodies repair themselves over time. I broke my arm when I was 12. It healed in about 6 weeks. We can recover from cuts, burns, and infections. Our immune systems fight off diseases constantly." The room went silent. Several students looked physically ill at the description. 6 weeks, a student whispered. It took 6 weeks and you just waited. I had a cast, said. It wasn't that bad, I still went to school. In the back row leaned forward. Your bones broke and you continued your daily activities. I couldn't play sports for a while, admitted. But yeah, life goes on. Finally spoke up. Her voice was barely above a whisper. How do you survive on your planet? Everything about it sounds designed to kill you. Considered the question. I guess we're just stubborn. Humans have been around for about 300,000 years. We survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and natural disasters. We learned to adapt. We built tools. We worked together. Our planet is dangerous, but it's home. The class continued for another hour, answered more questions about human biology and Earth's environment. He talked about hurricanes and earthquakes, about venomous snakes and poisonous plants, about the way humans had spread across every continent despite the challenges. By the end, most students were looking at him like he was some kind of monster wearing a friendly face. Was packing up his tablet when the lights flickered. A loud alarm began to sound, and red emergency lights replaced the normal white ones. Attention all students and staff, a voice announced over the speakers. The station is now in lockdown. A security threat has been detected. Remain in your current locations and await further instructions. Instructor moved quickly to the door and engaged the emergency seal. The thick metal barrier slid into place with a heavy thunk. Everyone remained calm, said, but his blue skin had gone pale. I am sure this is just a precaution. Noticed that the instructor's hands were shaking. He looked around the room and saw fear on every face. Whatever was happening, it was serious enough to frighten even the teacher. Pressed herself against the side without seeming to realize she was doing it. Her small body trembled. What's happening? She asked. Did not know, but he had a feeling he was about to find out. The classroom fell into darkness except for the red emergency lights that pulsed slowly from the ceiling. Students huddled together in small groups, their species mixing in ways they never would during normal times. Fear had a way of breaking down barriers. Remained in his seat and watched instructor move to the communication panel near the door. The instructor's 4 hands worked quickly over the controls, trying to get more information about what was happening outside. Instructor called from the back of the room. The large had moved to stand near a group of smaller students, positioning himself as a shield. What kind of threat causes a full lockdown? Did not answer immediately. His blue face had turned almost gray, and his movements had become stiff. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "A has breached the station." The reaction was immediate. Several students began crying. Others started praying to gods had never heard of. The warrior who had seemed so confident went completely still. Even his scales seemed to lose their color. Grabbed arm with both of her small hands. "We're going to die," she said. "We're all going to die." Looked around the room, confused by the level of panic. "What's a?" Every student turned to stare at him. For a moment, their fear was replaced by disbelief. Instructor walked slowly toward. "You do not know about the—" "I've only been in galactic space for 2 months," said. "There's a lot I don't know yet." Sat down heavily on a nearby desk. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. "They are a species that should not exist. They were created during the corporate wars over 300 years ago. A weapons company designed them to be the perfect soldiers. They are biological killing machines." "Created?" asked. "Like genetically engineered?" "Yes," said. "They have enhanced senses that can track prey across kilometers. Their claws are coated with venom that paralyzes within seconds. They are faster than any natural species and stronger than most machines. But worst of all, they were programmed with an uncontrollable drive to hunt and kill. They cannot stop themselves. Murder is written into their very genes. Process this information, so they're like predators." "No," said. His voice was rough with fear. "Predators kill to survive. The The kill because they must, because they want to, because nothing else brings them satisfaction. They were banned from galactic society after the wars ended. Anyone found creating or harboring a faces execution. They are monsters in the truest sense. The room fell silent except for the soft sounds of crying. The red lights continued to pulse. Asked another question, how big are they? Looked at him with confusion. What? How big, how tall, how heavy? They stand approximately 2.5 meters tall, said. They weigh perhaps 300 kilograms. They have 8 limbs, 4 for movement and 4 for killing. Their bodies are covered in black chitin that can deflect most small weapons. Nodded slowly. How fast? Faster than any of us could run. Faster than our eyes can follow in close quarters. Can they be hurt? Hesitated. In theory, yes. They can be killed with sufficient firepower, but they feel no pain as we understand it. They do not stop until they are completely destroyed or until their prey is dead. Stood up from his seat. The movement drew every eye in the room. Where are you going? Asked. Her grip on his arm tightened. I'm going to watch the door, said. Someone should keep an eye on it. Watch the door, a student with 6 eyes repeated. They will tear through that door like paper. Maybe, said, but I'd rather see it coming than have it surprise us. He walked down the steps toward the front of the classroom. The students he passed pressed themselves away from him, but their expressions had changed. They were still afraid, but now there was something else mixed in. Confusion, perhaps, or curiosity. Rose from his position and followed. The warrior stopped beside the human and looked down at him. Was nearly a meter taller than and probably 4 times his weight, but his scales still looked pale. You are not afraid, said. It was not a question. Considered his answer. I'm cautious but afraid, not really. How is that possible? Did you not hear what they are? Turned to face the larger alien. On my planet, we evolved alongside predators for millions of years. Big cats that could crush our skulls with one bite. Bears that weighed 1,000 kilograms. Wolves that hunted in packs and never gave up once they had our scent. We survived because we learned to think instead of just react. Fear is useful, but panic gets you killed. Stared at him for a long moment. Your species hunted these creatures. Eventually, yes. We went from being prey to being the most dangerous predators on our planet. We drove some of those species to extinction. Not on purpose, mostly, but it happened. Humans learned that anything can be killed if you're smart enough and stubborn enough. A sound came from outside the door. Something heavy was moving through the corridor. The footsteps were wrong, too many impacts happening too quickly. Whatever was out there had more than 2 legs. The students in the classroom went completely silent. Some stopped breathing, covered her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Watched the metal barrier. He could hear something on the other side, a wet breathing sound mixed with a low clicking. That was right there, separated from them by just a few centimeters of metal. The door shuddered as something struck it from the outside. The metal dented inward. Students screamed. Did not move. He did not look away. He kept his eyes on the door and waited. The door shuddered again. The dent grew deeper. It's coming through, said. His voice cracked with terror. Everyone get to the back of the room. Get behind the desks. Hide yourselves. The students rushed to obey, hesitated looking at. Come with us, they said. You cannot fight that thing. Shook his head slowly. Someone has to slow it down, give the others time. The door buckled. Through the gap, could see something black and shining. Multiple eyes reflected the red emergency lights. A claw forced its way through the opening, peeling back the metal like it was nothing. Took a deep breath and faced the door. Behind him, watched through her fingers. She had never seen anyone stand against death with such calm acceptance. She did not understand it. She did not know if it was bravery or madness. But she knew she would never forget it. The door finally gave way with a terrible shriek of tearing metal. The pushed through the opening and stood in the doorway, and understood why the entire galaxy feared this creature. It was massive. Nearly 3 meters of black chitin and muscle filled the entrance. 8 limbs sprouted from its body, 4 thick legs that ended in clawed feet, and 4 upper limbs that were nothing but weapons. Each arm ended in curved blades that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its head was a nightmare of compound eyes and mandibles, constantly clicking and twitching as it scanned the room. The students screamed. Some tried to run even though there was nowhere to go. Others froze completely, their minds shutting down from pure terror. Instructor pushed himself in front of a group of smaller students, his 4 arms spread wide in a desperate attempt to shield them. As many eyes swept across the classroom. It was selecting prey, realized, choosing who would die first. Its gaze passed over the cowering students and settled on the easiest targets, the small ones who could not run fast enough. Stepped forward. The movement caught the creature's attention. All of those eyes turned to focus on him. The clicking sound grew louder. Did not run. He did not hide behind a desk. He stood in the open space between thee and the other students and made himself as visible as possible. "Hey," he said, his voice was steady, "over here." The tilted its head. The motion was almost curious, like a cat studying something it did not quite understand. In its entire existence, prey had never walked toward it. Prey ran, prey hid, prey begged for mercy that would never come. This small creature was doing none of those things. Took another step forward. He kept his eyes locked on the central cluster of eyes, maintaining contact the way he had been taught to do with predators on Earth. Running triggered the chase instinct. Looking away showed weakness. But holding your ground, making yourself seem confident and unafraid, sometimes that made a predator hesitate. "That's right," said calmly. "Look at me, I'm right here." They made a sound that might have been confusion. Its upper limbs twitched, the bladed arms rising slightly. "Why are you not running?" The voice came from the creature itself, deep and wrong and barely understandable. Had not expected it to speak. "Would running help?" asked. "No, you would die tired." "Then why would I run?" The went still. Its programming, designed over 3 centuries ago, had no response for this situation. Every other species fled from it. Every other species showed fear. This creature was doing neither, and they did not know how to process that information. Used the pause to study his opponent. The chitin armor looked thick, but there had to be weak points. The joints where limbs connected to the body. The eyes. The places where different plates met. Nothing was truly invincible. "There are 30 students in this room," said. "Most of them are children by their species standards. They have families who love them. They haven't done anything wrong." "I do not care," they said. "I was made to kill, I must kill, it is all I am." "That's not true. You're talking to me right now. You could have attacked already, but you didn't." They made that confused sound again. Its bladed arms lowered slightly. Behind, the students watched in stunned silence, had stopped breathing. Claws had extended, ready to fight even though he knew it would be useless. Instructor stared at the human with something like awe. The moment of hesitation ended. This programming reasserted itself, and the killing drive overcame the confusion. It lunged forward with a speed that should have been impossible for something so large. Had been expecting it. He threw himself to the side, rolling across the floor as a bladed arm sliced through the air where his head had been. He came up near a row of desks and grabbed one, pulling it between himself and the creature. The cut through the desk like it was made of paper, was already moving, staying low and fast, using the furniture as obstacles. He was not trying to fight the creature. He knew he could not win a direct confrontation. He was trying to buy time and draw its attention away from the others. "Come on," shouted. "I'm the one you want, come and get me." The followed. Its many eyes tracked its movements, and its legs carried it forward with terrible speed. A bladed arm lashed out and caught across the upper arm, cutting through his uniform and into the flesh beneath. Pain exploded through his body. Blood began to soak through his sleeve, but he did not stop moving. Pain was just information. Pain told you that you were still alive. Pain could be dealt with later. He reached the classroom door, the one that had destroyed coming in. The corridor beyond was dark and filled with emergency lighting, but it was space. Space meant room to move, room to think, room to survive. Turned back to look at. The small Pelion was staring at him with tears running down her silver fur. "Seal the door behind me," said. "Use the emergency barrier, keep everyone safe." "No," said, "you can't." "I can," said, "and I will. This is what humans do. We protect our people." He ran into the corridor. The followed, unable to resist the chase now that its prey was fleeing. The creature's massive form squeezed through the doorway and pursued into the darkness. Behind them, rushed to the door controls. His clawed hands found the emergency seal, and he activated it. A secondary barrier slid down from the ceiling, sealing the classroom and cutting them off from the corridor. Pressed her hands against the barrier. Through the small window, she could see the red emergency lights and hear the sounds of the hunting. Somewhere in that darkness was running for his life. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would he do that for us?" Instructor came to stand beside her. His blue face was wet with what might have been tears. "Because he is human," he said quietly, "and apparently that means something we never understood." The sounds of pursuit faded into the distance. Closed her eyes and prayed to gods she barely believed in, praying for a creature from a death world who had chosen to die so that strangers might live. Ran through the corridors of Harmony Prime with blood dripping from his wounded arm and a monster close behind him. The emergency lights painted everything in shades of red, and the alarms had gone silent, leaving only the sound of his own breathing and the clicking footsteps of the... He ducked around a corner and pressed himself against the wall, trying to slow his heart rate. The wound on his arm was bad, but the bleeding had slowed. Human bodies were good at that, at closing wounds and fighting infections and keeping going when other species would have already collapsed. The clicking footsteps grew louder. There was tracking him by scent, realized. He could not hide from it. He could only stay ahead of it. Pushed off from the wall and kept moving. He passed sealed doors and empty hallways. Everyone on the station had locked themselves away, hiding from the creature that hunted through their home. Was the only one still out in the open, and he intended to keep it that way. His mind raced through everything he knew about predators. There was fast and strong and armored. Direct combat was suicide, but every predator had weaknesses. Every hunter could become the hunted if you were smart enough. Remembered something from his xenobiology studies. They were designed to hunt prey species. Prey species ran in straight lines. Prey species tired quickly. Prey species gave up when they were caught. But humans were not prey. Changed his strategy. Instead of running in a straight line, he began doubling back. He climbed through maintenance hatches and crawled through ventilation shafts. He left trails that went nowhere and false paths that ended at locked doors. He was not trying to outrun the anymore. He was trying to exhaust it. On Earth, humans had hunted animals called antelope. The antelope were faster than humans, but humans did not need to be faster. Humans just needed to keep following. Humans sweated to cool themselves while their prey overheated. Humans tracked their prey for hours and days until the animal simply could not run anymore. This was called persistence hunting, and it was one of humanity's oldest survival techniques. Wondered if it could work in reverse. If he could keep them moving and confused, maybe it would slow down. Maybe it would make mistakes. He found a maintenance bay after 20 minutes of running and hiding. The room was filled with tools and equipment for station repairs. Spotted a welding torch on a workbench and grabbed it. Fire was another human advantage. They had learned to control it long before any other tool. The door to the maintenance bay burst open. The stood in the entrance, its black chitin scratched and dull from squeezing through tight spaces. It was breathing hard, something had not heard it do before. "You are persistent," the said. Its voice was rougher now, less controlled. "No prey has ever led me on such a chase." Held up the welding torch and ignited it. A bright blue flame shot out, and the actually flinched backward. "I told you," said, "I'm not prey." "You are wounded, you are weak, you are alone, how are you not prey?" Smiled despite the pain in his arm. "Because I'm human. My ancestors survived ice ages that covered half our planet. They hunted animals 10 times their size with nothing but sharp sticks. They crossed oceans on wooden boats without knowing if there was anything on the other side. We don't give up. We don't stop. And we definitely don't roll over and die just because something scary is chasing us." The studied him with its many eyes. Something was changing in the creature's expression, though could not identify what. "I was made to kill," the said. "I have killed thousands. Nothing has ever spoken to me like this. Nothing has ever fought back." "Maybe that's the problem," said. "Maybe you've never met something worth talking to." The lunged, thrust the welding torch forward and caught the creature across its leading arms. The flame burned through gaps in the chitin, and made a sound that might have been pain. It pulled back, 3 of its arms now scorched and damaged. Pressed his advantage. He swung the torch in wide arcs, forcing the to retreat. The creature was not used to this. Its entire existence had been defined by hunting weaker things. It had no programming for facing something that fought back with tools and fire. But there was still faster. It circled around and struck from behind. Claws raked across his back, tearing through his uniform and into the muscle beneath. Fell forward, barely keeping hold of the torch. He rolled onto his back and held the flame up as a barrier. The loomed over him, all 8 limbs ready to finish the kill. "Why do you keep fighting?" the creature asked. "You cannot win, you must know this." His vision was blurring from blood loss and pain. "I'm not fighting to win," he said. "I'm fighting to buy time. Every minute I keep you here is a minute those students are safe. That's enough for me." The went still again. Its compound eyes blinked in a pattern did not understand. "You would die for them, for creatures you barely know, creatures who feared you." "Yes," said simply, "that's what humans do." Before they could respond, a new sound filled the corridor outside. Heavy footsteps and shouting voices. Station security had finally arrived. Armed officers poured through the doors, their weapons raised and ready. They formed a semicircle around and someone was shouting orders that could not quite hear over the ringing in his ears. The looked at one more time, then it turned to face the security forces. Expected the creature to fight, to go down killing as its programming demanded, but instead the lowered its arms and went still. "I surrender," it said. The security officers hesitated. In the entire history of their species, a had never surrendered before. Pushed himself up to a sitting position, his blood pooling on the floor beneath him. He watched as the officers surrounded the creature and began the process of restraining it. One of the officers, a like instructor, knelt beside. "Medical team is on the way," she said. "Just hold on." Nodded weakly. The welding torch had fallen from his grip, its flame extinguished. His vision was going dark at the edges. The last thing he saw before passing out was the being led away. And for just a moment, could have sworn the creature looked back at him with something other than the hunger to kill. It almost looked like respect. Woke up in a white room filled with soft light and the gentle hum of medical equipment. His body felt heavy, wrapped in bandages and connected to machines that beeped quietly beside his bed. For a moment, he did not remember where he was or how he had gotten there. Then everything came back. The classroom, the blood and the fire and the running. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his back and arm, forcing him back down onto the bed. "You should not move yet," a voice said from nearby. turned his head and saw a medical officer sitting in a chair beside his bed. The officer was a small creature with 4 eyes and delicate hands, a species did not recognize. "How long was I out?" asked. 3 days, the officer said. "Your wounds were severe. We had to perform extensive surgery to repair the damage to your muscles and tendons. Any other species would have died from blood loss before we reached you." "But I didn't die." "No, you did not." The officer looked at with an expression that mixed amazement with something like fear. "Your body is already healing at a rate we have never seen before. The doctors have been documenting everything. They want to study human physiology more closely." Managed a weak smile. "Glad I could help advance science." The door to the medical room opened, and a small figure rushed in. Stopped beside's bed, her silver fur slightly disheveled and her eyes red from crying. She looked at him like she was seeing a ghost. "You're awake," she said. "You're really awake." Hay said, "Sorry I worried you." Made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "Sorry? You're sorry. You nearly died saving us. You ran out of that classroom with a monster chasing you and you're sorry." "I didn't mean to make you cry." Wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I've been crying for 3 days. The whole academy has been talking about nothing else. The human who faced alone. The human who surrendered himself so others could live." Felt uncomfortable with the attention. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," a deeper voice said from the doorway. Walked into the room, his massive form barely fitting through the opening. "No one else would have done what you did. I am a warrior. I come from a species that values courage above all else. And I stood frozen while you walked toward death without hesitation." Approached the bed and lowered himself to one knee. It was a posture of submission, something a warrior would only show to someone they considered their superior. "You have my respect, Brooks of Earth. You have the respect of my entire clan. From this day forward, you are considered a brother to the people." Did not know what to say. He had never expected this kind of reaction. Instructor arrived next, followed by several other students from the class. They gathered around's bed, their expressions filled with gratitude and wonder. "The station council has been discussing what to do about said. The standard punishment for is immediate execution. They are considered too dangerous to be allowed to live." His heart sank. What did they decide? "The decision has not been made yet. There is debate among the council members. Some want the creature destroyed. Others argue that it surrendered willingly, something no has ever done before. They believe this might indicate the possibility of change." "It can change," said. "I talked to it. It was confused by me. It had never met anything that didn't run away screaming. Maybe if someone actually tried to communicate with it, tried to teach it that there's more to existence than killing." Looked at him with surprise. "You would advocate for the creature that nearly killed you." "It was designed to be a weapon. It never had a choice about what it was. That's not fair. Nothing should be condemned just because of how it was made." The room fell silent. The students looked at each other with uncertainty. Stepped forward. "I'll speak at the council hearing," she said. "I'll tell them what did. I'll tell them that if a human can face with compassion instead of hatred, then maybe we can find compassion too." Other students nodded in agreement. Stood up and placed one massive hand over his heart, a gesture of solidarity. The days that followed were strange for. He became something of a celebrity on the station, a status he did not enjoy but could not escape. Students who had avoided him before now wanted to sit near him in class. Instructors asked him to speak about human culture and values. News of what had happened spread throughout the sector, and requests for interviews came from a dozen different worlds. Tried to focus on his studies and ignore the attention as much as possible. 2 weeks after the incident, the council reached its decision. The would not be executed. Instead, it would be placed in a specialized rehabilitation facility where researchers would attempt to help it overcome its programming. It was an unprecedented decision, driven in large part by testimony from the students had saved. Was allowed to visit the before it was transferred. He stood outside its containment cell, separated by transparent barriers designed to withstand a nuclear blast. The creature looked smaller than he remembered. Its chitin was dull, and its movements were slow. It watched approach with those many eyes, but there was no hunger in them anymore. "They told me you spoke for me," the said, "that you asked them to spare my life." "You surrendered," said. "That means there's something in you besides the programming that's worth saving." "I do not understand you. I was designed to kill. You were nearly killed by me. You should want me destroyed." Shook his head. "My species spent most of its history fighting. We killed each other over territory and resources and ideas. But eventually, some of us started to believe that there had to be a better way. That maybe we could choose to be different. If humans can change, why can't you?" There was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke again, and its voice was different than before. Softer, less like a weapon and more like a person. "I would like to try," it said. "I would like to be something other than what I was made to be." Smiled. "That's all any of us can do. Try to be better than we were yesterday." He left the containment area and walked back toward the main section of the station. Was waiting for him outside, her small form leaning against the wall. "How did it go?" she asked. "Good, I think it wants to change. That's a start." They walked together through the corridors of Harmony Prime. Students and staff nodded as they passed, their expressions warm instead of fearful. The human from the death world had become something else in their eyes. Not a monster, not a threat, just a person who had proven that courage and compassion could exist together. Looked up as they walked. "I used to be so scared of humans," she said. "All those stories about your planet made me think you must be terrifying creatures." "And now?" asked. Smiled, her silver fur catching the light. "Now I think the galaxy has been wrong about humans for a very long time. You're not scary because you come from a death world. You're amazing because you survived a death world and still found room in your hearts for kindness." Laughed. "We're just stubborn, too stubborn to let fear control us, too stubborn to give up on anyone, even our enemies." They reached the classroom where everything had started. Instructor was already inside, preparing for the day's lesson. Students were taking their seats, filling the room with the sounds of multiple languages and species. Walked to his usual seat, sat down beside him without hesitation, without flinching, without any trace of the fear that had once made her tremble. The door opened and a new student walked in, a tall creature with feathered limbs and a nervous expression. The new student saw and hesitated, clearly recognizing him as the human everyone had been talking about. Leaned over and whispered something to the newcomer. Could not hear the words, but he saw the new student relax. The fear faded from their eyes, replaced by curiosity. The new student took a seat nearby and offered a tentative smile. Smiled back. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. Fear was being replaced by understanding. Walls were coming down. And somewhere in a containment cell, a creature designed for murder was learning that it could choose to be something else. That was the power of humanity, not strength, not violence, not the ability to survive on a death world. The power to see potential in others, the power to offer second chances, the power to walk toward fear and transform it into something better. Class began. Instructor started speaking about adaptation and survival. Opened his tablet and took notes, just another student learning his place in a vast and complicated galaxy. But he was not just another student anymore. He was proof that the scariest things in the universe could also be the most kind.